Welcome to the Cooking Chat Food and Wine Podcast. Cooking Chat focuses on tasty recipes that get better with wine. On the podcast, we explore ideas for cooking with seasonal ingredients and wines to pair with them. You'll meet producers involved with the local food system, as well as some winemakers. In today's episode, I'm joined by Aly Wente, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Customer Experience at Wente Family Estates. This winery has been guided by the Wente family for 5 generations, making it the longest continuously operated family-owned winery in the United States. I enjoyed talking with Aly about the rich history of her family's winery, along with the innovations that she and others in her family are bringing to the business. We also had a chance to learn more about Livermore Valley wines and taste a couple delicious examples of it. Hello, Aly. Welcome to the Cooking Chat podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Great. Looking forward to this conversation. I've had a chance to enjoy a number of the wines from Wente Family Vineyards and know you have a lot of history behind it. And I will say I'm excited to taste these wines because I think Chardonnay is definitely the one I've had the most from your vineyard. So before we talk about some of the specifics of the wine, though, not every I understand you have deep-rooted history. We could spend the whole time talking about just that, but we won't do that. Give us a little introduction to the story of your family's winery.
Perfect. And yes, we could spend a lot of time talking about it, but we will keep it condensed. So my family has been making and growing wine in the Livermore Valley since 1883, and we've always remained family owned and operated. Today we are run by the fifth generation of my family, which I'm a member of. And because of that, we are the country's longest continuously
Mm.
family owned and operated winery. And today we farm about 3,000 acres of estate vineyards, which are all certified sustainable. And about 2,000 acres of those vineyards are in the Livermore Valley. And we also farm around 1,000 acres in Arroyo Seco, Monterey, which my grandfather purchased in the 1960s. So, when we're looking at our history, I always like to break it out by generation, but
Mhm.
obviously, first generation founded the winery of German descent. Um, the second generation really put us on the map for Chardonnay, which is what we're most known for, my family, though we grow much more than that. And I know we'll talk about something
Yeah,
different
yeah.
today. And the third generation, my grandfather really kind of improved our winery. He purchased our Arroyo Seco estate, so really looked beyond Livermore. And the fourth generation, my parents and aunt and uncle really kind of thought about wine as a lifestyle, and they built a fine dining restaurant, opened our tasting room businesses. They opened a Greg Norman design golf course here in the
Oh,
Livermore
really?
Valley.
Wow.
So yeah, like really focus on making Livermore a destination. And that has
Hmm.
always been something near and true to their heart. But they also did much more in regards to starting our export business. We now sell wine to 75 countries around the world. So
Wow.
yeah, and the fifth generation, big shoes to fill, I guess is the best way
Sounds
to
like it.
say
I'm
it.
like a drum roll. Like, what's the fifth generation gonna do here?
I know that's what everyone asks, but yeah, we've been really focused on pushing forward our sustainable initiatives
Mm.
and innovating, and then really also kind of making sure that we are best set up to speak to different consumer and their needs. So
Yeah.
that's been fun.
Great. Well, look forward to hearing more as we progress through it. But before, I know we're not going to talk a lot about Chardonnay. We have other wines, but I do know, that you're famous, of course, for also the Wente Clone that bears your name. You want to tell how you got to have the name associated with, I think it's a large percent of Chardonnay grapes in California, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah. So my great grandfather planted Chardonnay back in 1908, And really, there wasn't a lot of Chardonnay planted in California at the time. And so he was hyper focused on making sure that he could create a really signature style of flavor he was looking for and a vine health. And he propagated that health and fruit forward flavor and kind of created this field selection, if you will. And at the time, it was a lot easier for people to come get Chardonnay cuttings from our property or someone else who'd already had that. And so the Wente field selection at the time really kind of propagated itself forward until lo and behold, now nurseries are selling it. We worked with UC Davis to create a heat clone, and I once had a terrible internship where I had to call like a directory of California wineries and ask them if they use the Wente clone to help verify what we believe to be true, in that 75% of all California Chardonnay has genetic roots back to our family's property because of that story.
Wow, that's amazing. And yeah, wow,
Yes,
that's a big job too. There are a lot of wineries in California to call. Yeah, that's great.
there really is.
Wow. So speaking of your internship, I'm curious, I have had a chance to talk to others that have joined their family wine business. I'm curious about your story. Is that something you always saw yourself doing, or is it something maybe you had another idea in mind and somewhere along the way, sort of return to the roost, as it were?
Yeah, I did not want to grow up and work in the wine industry necessarily. It was really all around me when I was growing up as a young girl. And I think that ever-present conversation at the dinner table to the vineyards all around us, I really wanted to make sure I was deciding what I wanted my career to be on my own and not just sort of marching along an obvious path, if you will.
Hmm.
And also, it's funny to think back. I don't remember my parents really asking me if I ever wanted to work in the wine industry. They
Okay.
were really focused on, what does Aly, as her own person, want to do, and how can we help her achieve that? So I think that, I never felt the like extreme pull or force or anything like that to
Yeah,
go work in the business,
right.
but ended up coming back to it naturally. Where as an adult, I was living in San Francisco, loved food
Mhm.
and wine and restaurants, and just intrigued by the whole thing, and started to think about, oh, wait a second, I could work in an industry that I'm personally passionate about. So
Yeah,
why am I why am I holding myself back?
right. Oh, that's great. Well, that makes sense. It sounds great. The fact that your parents gave you some space to do your own thing, then you feel like you're doing it of your own volition and not like, oh, sense of obligation. So it's probably a better situation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was the right way to do it. And when I worked outside of the business for a while, for about 7 years before I came back to work for my family. And I think that was also right, in which we do ask family members to go work outside the business for at least 5 years. For me, I wasn't really ever worried about the clock so much. I always thought the
Mhm.
longer I was out, the better. Because to me, when I came back, it'd be like getting married. I don't want to leave. I want to do it once. I'm
Right.
back. And so that I ended up kind of coming back on my own at the right time. And I think that also means something. So,
Yeah, great. Well, I know today, in addition to hearing about your winery, we are kind of talking broadly also about Livermore Valley, which we're happy to learn more about. Can you kind of paint the picture a little bit? It's obviously has a deep history, but maybe it's not quite as well known as some other California regions. So, tell us where it is on the map, what's the terrain look like, climate, all that good stuff.
of course. So, California is about 30 miles east as a crow flies from the San Francisco Bay. And if you're thinking about, I always say, most folks know where Napa is. So here's San Francisco Bay. Napa, is north and Livermore is east. So we make like a nice little triangle, if you
Yeah.
will. And we have a very strong marine influence because of that proximity to the bay. We have a east or a west to east oriented valley, which is a bit
Okay.
unique for California wine regions.
Mm-hmm.
And the advantage that we get from this is that the mouth of our valley is essentially opened up to the bay. So
Wow.
while we get really warm days in Livermore in our valley, just like Napa and Sonoma, we get this like beautiful ripeness. Our temperature drops relatively quickly in the afternoon because we get long sweeping winds that come in from the bay. If you could imagine it, just down the freeway
Oh,
through, through the valley,
mm-hmm.
basically. And in other valleys where the winds might have to go up and over, a mountain range or something to get there, we just honestly have an opening welcoming them in. So for us, that those cool breezes and that afternoon air, it kind of starts around from 3 to 5. It can get pretty windy here in the Livermore Valley, and that brings our temperatures down pretty quickly. Um, and then, we have big diurnal swings.
Yeah.
So we could have a 50-degree swing in the same day from the hottest peak in the afternoon to the coldest in the nighttime. We have generally gravelly soils. Of course, there's different
Mm.
types, but
Yeah.
primarily gravelly soils here in Livermore. But there are microclimates, I think, which allow some different varieties to grow really beautifully on soil
Mhm.
types and rolling hills too. So
Nice.
all of that kind of impacts what in which we plant to grow.
Great. And what are in terms of both your own winery and others, and we're going to talk. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us? I understand there's sort of been an idea of focusing on Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc in the Livermore Valley. Yeah, I'd love to hear maybe how that came about, maybe and what some of the other prominent grapes are in that both that you produce and other and your colleagues in the valley.
Of course. Well, I think in general, Bordeaux varieties tend to do really well in gravelly soils with this climate, right? And so Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc are both of that style and type, and they are really beautiful. And I think that call to Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc is just because of how beautiful all of these wines are that are coming out of it. And even from having we have two different tasting rooms in Livermore Valley. We have a Wente Vineyards, and then we also have another tasting room called Myriad as well. We make Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc at both of them in different
Mm.
styles, but they're some of the most popular wines that we make because people just love them. I think that's because in Cabernet Franc, we get the heat that I was just talking about in the day, and that takes out the
Mhm.
pyrazines and kind of those green note flavors that people can
Okay.
get. So we're
Yeah.
working out the like bell pepper-ness
Hmm.
there. So instead, you're getting this like plush and beautiful fruit and no greenness. And I think
Right.
that is really lovely. And the gravelly soils, create the right growing conditions and stress that the vine needs to produce some really fantastic Cabernet Franc. And then
Mm.
Sauvignon Blancs in Livermore tend to be kind of like mineral and citrus, zesty, a little bit of like grass. And
Hmm.
so it is a really beautiful kind of acidic fresh style. And so those two varieties just do exceptionally well, and others do too. I mean, we grow Cab here. We grow a lot of Chardonnay
Yeah.
in the Livermore Valley. That's our history and heritage. We are the largest grower of Chardonnay in the valley, but we really love the qualities that come from Chardonnay here too. So, I think between the wineries combined and just trying to focus in a little bit more so people can understand, oh, what should I come to Livermore for? You should absolutely
Yeah.
try our Sauvignon Blancs and our Cabernet Francs here.
Great. Well, that is a good segue. I'm not able to travel there just at the moment, but we can virtually travel via the
Yeah,
glass. So we have um, one of your Sauvignon Blancs that you kindly sent my way to try. Do you want to tell us about it? Do you
I
have the
would
bottle,
love
or should
to.
I show that? It's this
Yeah,
bottle here.
perfect. There you
Yeah.
go. So that is our Wente Vineyards limited release Sauvignon Blanc. It's what we sell in our tasting room and on our website. And this is a fun style. Because we're a Chardonnay house, we are who we are.
Mhm.
We decided to make a Sauvignon Blanc for Chardonnay lovers. And so this
Oh, okay.
Sauvignon Blanc is 100% barrel fermented. It
Oh,
goes through
interesting.
10% of new French oak and 90% second and third use. It's only in the oak for 4 months. So we're really going for like a relative low touch. But like I said, that Sauvignon Blanc does have a little bit more of like the lemongrass,
Mm-hmm.
citrus, mineral. Like we get a lot of minerality in our Sauvignon Blanc here with our soils. And so it's this fun kind of complexity of it's aged surly in the barrel. It's 100% barrel fermented. So you get a little bit of like creaminess and a little more body weight perhaps, and a touch of the, oak vanilla. It's all French oak.
Hmm.
And I think it just makes it layered and complex and fun.
Yeah, well, thanks for setting that up. And it's interesting. I'm sure. obviously your comments are suggestive a little bit, but I think I definitely would have gotten that. It's a more complexity than I think you get from some Sauvignon Blancs. Is that uncommon? The bar, well, especially I guess a Bordeaux, white Bordeaux would maybe do a similar approach. I'm thinking other
Yeah.
Sauvignons from
And I
California
think
have had
a lot of
maybe
like
something like
Napa
that.
producers will do it, and but a lot of people will call it Fumé Blanc. We didn't label it as Fumé
Hmm.
Blanc. We just called it Sauvignon Blanc. But I think it can be common, but probably more times than not, people are used to having a stainless steel Sauvignon Blanc, which we
Yeah.
make one of those too. It's
Hmm.
just a different style.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can see where you would say it's got that mouth feel a little bit more
Hmm.
like a Chardonnay, which I like Chardonnay. I know some people, it's got some people. I think just, some Chardonnays are, can be overdone, overly buttery or what have you, overall. But I feel like people are kind of overall kind of tempering that a little bit in general, at least the
I think they are.
quality wineries. So,
I agree with you. I think the pendulum swung really far on
mhm.
Chardonnay where it was like all butter bombs coming out in the
Mhm.
market, and now the customers are telling us, we want less of that, and people are starting to dial it back a little. But to me, I always say if you say you don't like Chardonnay, don't stop just not liking it. You had the wrong one.
Yeah,
Chardonnay
exactly
can
right.
just vary so greatly. Whereas Sauvignon Blanc is a little bit more straightforward in a
Right.
flavor profile
Mhm.
typically, and maybe that also feels like a safer bet if someone's in the
Yeah,
store trying to buy
right,
something and they just
right.
want to know what they're getting.
My mother's not very adventurous in her wines, and she has landed on Sauvignon Blanc. So I have this, and Mother's Day Sunday. I think I'm gonna that one we're not tasting today. I'll say for Sunday, and she'll be very happy.
She'll like it. Yeah, it's a good one. That is all stainless, but it is a really good one.
Yeah, and I definitely get like a combination of green apple, melon,
Mhm.
and I really nice
Thank you.
Sauv Blanc. Now, what would you think to um, eat with this, pair with this? I'm
I
enjoying it
think it
just
could
on
go
its own
so
here.
many, yeah, it could go so many different ways. You just said melon. It reminded me, I love in the summer like a prosciutto melon. That would be really good with this, I think.
Oh
Just
yeah.
packed with the saltiness of the prosciutto would be really lovely.
Hmm.
And that's so, like, as you said that, I'm like, oh, that sounds like a good little snack for tonight.
Hey,
But
yeah, that does sound very good.
Yeah, that's what I love. But you could pair this with so many different, I mean, like you could pair this with a really beautiful, we love cooking. Well, really,
Hmm.
my husband loves cooking. I love supporting his love for cooking.
That's a good
He does
deal.
this like clam pasta. It'd be so good with that.
That
So,
sounds very good. Yum. I
mhm.
do a lot of pesto, and Sauv Blanc is good with pesto. Although I could see that maybe the one that's not oaked might even be better with that with more acidity. I'm making salmon tomorrow. This salmon dish that this might go with.
This would be really good with salmon because of that surly, like the body of it, I think would be really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. And speaking of, maybe before we get into the Cab Franc, I noticed in your bio reference the new culinary program. You're not talking about, or maybe you are talking about what you're doing. I think it was referring to something more than your husband and
Yeah.
your projects in the kitchen.
Well, he is a culinary program. No, but I also so I oversee our marketing, but I also oversee our hospitality businesses, and we've really set up a new catering program in the last couple of years where we do large scale events or small events,
Yep.
food and wine pairings. So really setting up a whole culinary team to cater to
Right.
different needs
Right.
and experiences.
Fun. All right.
Yeah, so a little different than my husband's cooking, but
Yeah.
as you can tell, I love food and wine, so it's perfect.
Yeah. Well, we share that in common. Sounds like he does too. That's great. Is he a home cook, or is that his
Home cook, home cook. Yeah, he works in the tech industry, so it's like
Okay.
his love. It's his love affair, other than me.
That's good. Yeah, I find too. I mean, I obviously passionate about food and wine. This is why we're having this conversation on a podcast, but I have a day job. I run a nonprofit organization and might be similar to your husband. It's like a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff in your head, not very physical, except when we have big events where we have to lug stuff around. But that's only occasionally.
Yeah,
So it's nice to come home and cook. It's very tactile, it got very much a change of pace from the day job. So excellent.
absolutely. Yeah, it's important to have like I think personal projects that fuel your soul.
Definitely, definitely. So let's talk about the Cab Franc, which this is the one we have here.
Yep, yep. So that is our Wente Vineyards limited release Cabernet Franc, and it is so beautiful. It pretty much all typically comes from one single vineyard, which is our Wetmore Vineyard. It's a gorgeous
Mm.
vineyard, and as you drive by it to come to our property, you'll see it, and it's just like goes down sloping, rolling hills into a greater mountain range. So it's
Oh,
just
wow,
gorgeous.
nice.
Yeah. We put this through 60% new French oak, so it's definitely made in like a more robust style. So you'll
Mhm.
kind of pick up some of that sweet oak on the nose. 40% goes through second and third fermentation.
Mhm.
Or sorry, second second and third use.
Yep.
I also sell champagne, so I'm like
Okay, yeah, I was like,
like
okay,
in champagne
let's see.
world.
Right.
My apologies.
Okay.
And I think what's really lovely about this is it's not super dark and heavy necessarily. Like I still get some like beautiful, like ripe red cherries. It's a little bit maybe like a plum, and then dried herbs. I think you get some like um savory characteristics a little bit in here, but then the
Yeah,
oak, the
definitely got some flavor.
roundness, yeah, it kind of rounds it out.
And I see what you mean. You definitely don't get the like that green bell pepper element.
No.
And tell me again, why did you say what was it that?
The heat in
Okay,
the Livermore
yeah.
Valley like really kind of ripens all of that out. I think when you can find a lot of that, it's you had a cold year or you're in a too cool of a climate for the grape to like really ripen to the levels it needs to get rid of the bell pepper notes.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's
Hmm
100% Cab Franc.
Yeah, I think this it's 100%. So yep.
What, any ideas? What, well, now I should say what you might ask your husband to cook to go with this, or or maybe
I
you have a
know.
specialty that you make
You
you
know,
go with
we
it.
eat this with, we drink this wine actually all the time in our house.
Hmm.
And I think this could be, I mean, this could be really good with whatever you would maybe pair even a steak or a steak with, a cab with, like a
Yeah,
steak. It
yeah,
could be good with some like really beautiful meats. It would also be great with like a pork chop. So there's a lot of great things you could pair this with. A really yummy flatbread or
yeah,
pizza could be great too.
yeah. I'm gonna try. Well, I'll let you know how it goes. I've I made some big pot of bolognese eat
Mm,
earlier in the week and sort of have enough left. Instead of we often have pizza on Friday nights. I'm like, oh, try something something home cooked with the with this wine. So I found Cab Francs in general can be a little more versatile than certainly than a Cabernet Sauvignon as far as food pairings. So look forward to tr
yeah.
trying this.
It is a little bit more forgiving, I think,
Yeah,
than Cabernet Sauvignon. In
yeah.
general, though, I live my life in the philosophy of eat what you want to eat and drink what you want to drink. And if my food and wine don't pair perfectly, then I'll normally just like not drink as much while I'm eating. I don't know. Like I enjoy a
Strategy.
great food and wine pairing for sure, but
Yeah,
sometimes my husband wants a cab and I want a Chardonnay and I'm just gonna have the Chardonnay even if the cab will pair better because that's what
yeah.
I want. So,
Hey, that's a good attitude. At the end of the day, yeah, have what you like, you know.
yes.
This isn't work. It shouldn't be a chore, right?
Yeah, you should just
Yeah,
have fun with it. Yeah. And if
yeah,
you find a really great pairing, that's the spark, that's the light to
yeah,
say, "Oh, I understand this," but not to stress out about it where you feel like you don't know and,
yeah.
so yeah.
Is there any pairing that you've had lately that you did really resonate as
I know I've just been trying to think about what that would be. We've been just doing some really fun pairings at our tasting room at Myriad as well, where we've been introducing some food programs. They
Mhm.
did like a duck confit on top of a latke with like a
Oh,
cherry demi glaze on top, and it was really good with the Cab Franc actually,
I could see
which was
that.
fun. And we make a Tempranillo. It also tasted great with that. So
Oh, okay.
that's a fun one. That's a new pairing I had recently.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
It was
Um,
good.
I was gonna segue to as we start winding down our time, our when you mentioned Tempranillo, a little surprised to hear you had that too. What, you have a range of wines. Are all your wines pretty much distributed throughout, or you're as we've discussed, obviously, particularly known for the Chardonnay I'll see in shops. So I'm in the Boston area around here. I haven't gone looking. Now I'm gonna look for some of these other wines here. Are they generally available, the range of wines that you offer?
For Wente, we have a lot of wines available nationally and globally. Our Cabernet Franc is not. And
Oh,
so the wines that we tasted today are more, I don't want to say they're more special, but they are more limited in production where
yeah,
we just sell them direct.
that makes sense.
But we have a plethora, like we have mini Chardonnays, Cabernets, Sauvignon, red blend, that's more of a dry Bordeaux style,
Hmm.
Pinot Noirs. So we have a bunch of wines you can try probably in most local stores where you would
Yeah,
go to find them. Myriad as well, which makes the Tempranillo, is really just in Livermore and selling direct, so you
yeah.
won't find those as widely available. But you can always order anything you want online.
That's a good segue. So people can order from your website. Do you have a wine club program or something? I don't know if you want to
We have
speak to
wine
that.
club programs, e-commerce. We also have like shipping subscriptions if you don't want to, opt into maybe as big of a wine club where you can design what you want to show up at your doorstep,
Yep.
and what cadence you want it at. So it's really totally custom to you and
Hmm.
your needs. So yeah, we have a lot of different options. And if anyone is listening who's local to the Bay Area, we have so many events and experiences at our properties that people can come to and club members get better deals on. So it's almost like a social club in
Yeah.
Livermore.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice. Well, that sounds like a great option. So people get to your website to get information about that and are
absolutely. WenteVineyards.com.
excellent. Well, it sounds like a great option to, especially I like that idea of the customizable aspect of it because I do feel like a lot of wine clubs, I mean, it's a great way to oops, it's a great way to, oh dear, you're still there. Sorry, I guess getting a notification. Anyway, we'll cut that little glitch out. I got that notice time running out.
No.
Yeah. You're gonna pause. So anyway, though, that sounds like great to have a customizable options for people to be able to pick and choose what they want to do. Or I guess you do also have a more traditional wine club where people can let you do the choosing. Okay.
Absolutely. We have traditional and maybe new subscription style models. So whatever you're looking for, we could probably do it.
That's awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Um, great. And so in visiting, so you have two tasting rooms, you say, actually? Yeah.
We do. They're two different brands. So Wente Vineyards has its own. We have tasting room, we have mini events, we have a golf course next door. So like you could park in one parking lot and do your wine tasting and your
Mhm.
golf and never leave. And then we have Myriad as well, which is a separate brand, but also a historical building, very charming boutique winery in the Livermore Valley. And we own that as well. So two really beautiful destinations for you to visit if you ever come check out Livermore, which I highly suggest you do. Livermore, all the wineries are 100% family owned.
Oh,
And
really? That's awesome.
yes, it's amazing. We have about 50 wineries and it's just charming. I always say Livermore is like the girl next door. It's approachable, charming, and fun.
Oh, that sounds great. It sounds like a wine trip to make, definitely. And convenient, like I said, to San Francisco. If everyone listening is from there, but or obviously it's a place a lot of people travel to. So great. Well, this has been great to learn more about your family winery and the rich history and the range of things you're doing. And so it's been a pleasure to chat with you.
It's been a total pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciated this time.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.